we're going to have the conversation. The next conversation that we're going to have is with regards to the results that were just released last week, the KCSE results. There's a story left, right, and center. Let's start with that story in the Nation, and then you tell us about the story in the Star, and we'll talk about others. What is it that they're saying?
So,
what's the problem?
What's the problem?
Yeah.
Was the KCSE exam stolen? There's a question over high grades. Why is it that we see from certain parts of the country that there have been such high grades in such high numbers where we haven't historically seen such numbers before? Questions have emerged over the credibility of these exams after some schools recorded a sudden, and I think that's it, rise in the number of candidates with straight A's. But Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu refuted the cheating claims, insisting that the exams were not leaked to favor certain schools. Now, this is the thing. They were not leaked to favor certain schools. Many asked,
so what were
then
they
were they leaked?
What were they leaked?
So what were they leaked
that's
to
the
do?
reporting issue.
What were they leaked to do? If it was not to favor certain schools,
No, they were not leaked.
why were they leaked if they were? He's dismissing those claims. He's also dismissing the Nyanza bias in this. We're looking at the numbers now, and we're saying that the numbers reported 1,146 plain A's compared to last year 1,138. There's a difference of 8. Focus is on some schools, particularly in Nyanza, that posted a drastic increment in the number of candidates who scored the top grades. For instance, in Nyambaria High School, 28 candidates scored A's in 2022 compared to 4 in 2021. The lowest grade for the class was a B-, and the school had a mean score of 10. This means that all 488 candidates will get direct entry to universities. This is from one school. At St. Paul's Gikano Boys School, all 142 candidates attained the university minimum of C plus and above. The school posted a mean grade of 9.9. Some politicians took to social media to demand answers on cheating allegations. One such was Bungoma Senator Boni Khalwale, and he said, "We hope the emerging allegations of cheating in the 2022 KCSE are just that, mere allegations. The collapse of the education system is the collapse of a nation."
You know, there's all this talk, and it's been there over the weekend, about schools in Kisii and Nyamira and how they've performed and what happened. So, for example, there was a story in the Standard yesterday talking about this school, for example, Rigokode Secondary School in Borabu constituency, Nyamira County. In 2021 KCSE, held between February and March 2022, the school posted a mean score of 5.728. That's a C plane. In the 2022 KCSE, conducted in December of 2022, the school posted a mean score of 9. It's a B plane. From 5.72 to 9, a B plane. Okay? All the 52 students who sat the 2022 national exam at Rigokode Secondary School attained a mean grade of C plus and above. That's qualifying all of them to go to university. Still in the larger Gusii region, Nyambaria Boys High School in Nyamira County, you just talked about that, with a mean score of 10.897, A-. The school had 488 candidates in the 2022 KCSE exam. 28 students scored A plane, 383 students got an A-, 76 got a B+, and 1 B plane. All of them, all 448 and 88 students in that school, Nyambaria High School, qualified for university. The lowest being a B plane in that school. So this is why people are asking, wait a minute.
Is it possible?
Hey,
to make such a jump.
Is it really possible? 488, and then you have a mean score of close to 10. Onesmus Mutio is the National Organizing Secretary of the University's Academic Staff Union. He joins us in the studio. Good morning, Onesmus. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Good to see you again.
Going to see you again.
You know, the last time we spoke to you was last year, and we were talking about other things, about universities funding and universities getting people to come on board. And last week we held a conversation with the CEO of the university's fund, and among the things that we talked about was if universities got more students, and universities would maybe be able to start balancing out. Now, more students have qualified for university this year, and we'll discuss that as we go on. This results, I'm sure you've seen the conversations that are happening on social media.
Sure.
What's your immediate reading of what's happening?
Well, first, we need to take note that there's a lot of improvement from schools and individuals. Students that we see did not perform very well in the primary, they are suddenly performing very good. So first we need to congratulate the students and the schools that performed very well. However, having said that, I think then we still have some serious questions that we might need to ask ourselves. For example, now a case where a school has not been performing very well, then suddenly it is performed very well and almost everyone is going to the university. Then we might need to ask, wow, maybe the teachers have been doing some magic, which we need to benchmark maybe from the other schools. So I think the results are raising some serious questions among Kenyans, and we are still wondering if they really reflect the reality of the ability of the students.
Is it really a far cry for if a school had a mean score of 5 in a previous year, 9 months later, the next class has a mean score of 9?
Well, it might happen, but maybe the issue is it's not something that is impossible. It can, but then we need to know how did it happen. Perhaps maybe the teacher changed, the way they were handling students. There was other improvements. So it's not something that cannot happen. It can, but it rarely happens. So maybe these are things that needs further investigations.
Okay. When we say it rarely happens, if we're looking at historical projections, or if we're looking at not even projections, historical happenings, over time, have we seen the progression of improvement in such a manner? Have we seen that in Kenya before in such a manner? That's the first question. Second part of that then would be, if we do see an improvement of this manner, should it then be followed by an explanation as to how this improvement came about? Was there a new head teacher? Was there a different form of studying? Was there another, strategy for, exams that was then introduced into these institutions? So like that, have we seen that kind of improvement in the past? And then number two, should we see that improvement? Should it be followed up by an explanation as per what happened?
Exactly, I agree. Well, I think this kind of an improvement has never been realized in our education sector. So when it happens, I think what we need is this, when you're saying that we have questions that require some answers. So everyone is asking, so what happened? And I think that is what maybe needs to be investigated. Kenyans need to know then if it genuinely happened, then what caused this to happen? How did it happen? Because to many Kenyans, it might seem to be unrealistic. It may not be so logical. But if it is true that it happened, then let us know how did it happen, so that maybe other schools can also benchmark and do the same, so that next year they'll also register such a tremendous improvement.
If you look at this one, the Nyambaria school, where all 488 students have qualified for university, with the lowest being a B in 2022. In the previous KCSE 2021, the school had a mean score of 9.3086, which is not so different from what they have scored now. They had 4 A planes, 79 A minus, 231 B plus, 130 B plane, 77 B minus, 46 C plus, 5 C plane, 4 C minus, 2 D plus, 2 D plane. You see, there's a spread. There's a proper distribution from D to D plus to C minus to C plane to C plus, and the majority of students scored a B plus, 231. This year, a majority of the students, 383, have scored an A minus, and 28 have scored an A, 76 a B plus, and 1 a B plane, and that is the lowest. Is it possible in 9 months' time for this to happen? Basically, you have a previous class where there was a proper spread of students. There were those that were getting D, and then there were those that were getting A, and the majority who had the B plane. And then this other year, it's the A's that dominate.
Exactly. That is what you're saying, that, well, if the trend has been normal, like you're saying, if the average has been 9 point something, then it goes to 10, then comes back to 8 or 7, that's a normal trend.
That's a normal one.
But when it is suddenly goes far much from like 5 to 9 or 10, that appears to be an abnormal trend. And it causes some worry, and we need to ask ourselves if it is genuine or if it is not.
Is it possible? I mean, you did say it was, you said it's possible. Because we're looking at 100% improvement, essentially, isn't it? That if you're at 5 and then you're at 10, you're looking at double the effort that has been made in a year. So from 2021 to 2022, you have seen that basically this school outperformed itself, and we've seen a number of those. From an education point of view, one would assume that more or less the same students had been retained in the school. One could assume that. Is it possible at an individual level and at a collective level you see such a jump?
Well, if that could be genuine, then so many other things could have changed. So we need to ask, are facilities still the same? Or are they different? Are the teachers still the same who are teaching the other students? And if yes, then were they given a different, kind of students? Is it that all the best students in the country were taken to that school and that is what they performed? But if everything else is constant, then I think there's a reason to worry. If the facilities are the same, the teachers are the same, you took students with the same marks that you've been taking before, everything is the same, but now we see an unrealistic improvement, then I think there's a serious reason to worry.
What would be that reason? What is it that would have happened?
Well, now, that is why we say maybe perhaps we might need to be, those are things that need to be investigated. We need to perhaps go on the ground and find out exactly, did miracles just happen? If we're talking about the same facilities, same libraries, same classrooms, same teachers, you took students with the same marks that you've been taking. So what actually has happened? And I think that is now the question that is among so many Kenyans. And that is why now, as you're reading, then so many Kenyans are, they seem to be worried exactly what happened.
Let's say miracles did not happen.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Let's say teachers were not changed.
Yes.
School principals did not change. School diet did not change. All right? None of that happened. So what's the other extreme? Cheating.
Of course, where answers are not provided, humanly speaking, we begin to speculate. And when we begin to speculate, the next possible speculation point will be cheating. That's what people would begin to speculate, whether true or not true. So those speculations will begin to come in the minds of the Kenyans.
From what we have seen before in cases of cheating, would it be possible that cheating happened, but the people who had access to leakage or whatever only happened to be in one region of the country, in 2 counties, not just in one school in a county, but in many schools across 2 counties? We're talking about over 100 schools.
Well, this might appear to be suspicious, but again, as you say, this is the first time that it is happening, and we really want to ask ourselves, how can that happen? Perhaps without proper answers, we may want to see, are they also going to do the same in this year's result? Because then, as you say, well, those are things that we may not get some good answers, and I hope the right people give us those answers to see. Is it that maybe sometimes there could be some maybe collaborations among these schools that they ensured that their students in their region are studied very hard? Those are things that we want to know, but again, it's still questionable.
I can see you're being very careful about some of these answers that you're giving. Look, if we're looking and we're swimming in the waters of speculation here, I mean, people have not suggested it over the weekend. People have been very clear and said that there has been some cheating. That it would be the only explanation as to why we saw what we have seen. There's been no, and just like you're saying, if there's been no drastic change, no injection of new teachers, no new facilities, same thing, no overhaul of the libraries, no new influx of students from other parts who may have been, powerful students, then one would say the only other explanation would be that there's been some cheating involved. Would that make sense to you, very plainly?
Of course, as I said, where answers are not provided, we will always speculate. And the obvious speculation will be that there was cheating, of course, which maybe has not been proved, where maybe we may not have a good evidence for that.
Yes.
They said that, the concerned people have come to dispute the issue of cheating. But still, the happenings will make us still speculate or believe that maybe there was some cheating until they prove us otherwise.
You say that there's some cause for worry. So I see this on two fronts. There would be some cause for worry if actually there was cheating that took place because, okay, what's happening to the system? And then in that case, maybe the words of Senator Boni Khalwale then would make some sense. On the other side, what would be the implication of putting students into a system? Because we know that an exam tests capability and it also tests knowledge. What would be the implication of putting students into a higher level of education that then had not authentically passed an exam from a university point of view? Now,
actually, that is where now the real worry is. I would want to sympathize with these students. If at all there was cheating and the students got marks that they did not deserve, in fact, my advice to them would be that let them not dare use those grades to select university courses, because it's going to be very tough for them. I want to warn them that if that happened, let them not expect it to be easy in the university, because then that happened, different courses will require different capabilities. For example, if a student wants to come to study a course in journalism, these students must be very good in languages. So here is a student, for example, just got a clean A, but they know that they're not very good in languages. So are they going to use those grades to apply for a course in journalism? Definitely not. And so I think there's also going to be a problem whereby some of the students will be tempted to use those grades, if they are not genuine, to apply for university courses, because then this problem is going to be graduated to us in the universities. We'll find ourselves having students that are weak. It might also put some friction in the university where some lecturers might be questioned or maybe might be asked to explain or to write a report where there is mass failures in their classes. So if that is where it began, probably this year or next year, we might begin to feel the impact in the universities.
Let's take a break. It's 8:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Onesmus Mutio is the National Organizing Secretary of the University's Academic Staff Union. He's with us in the studio. It's time for us to take a break, Mwalimu, and that break is a minute break.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Onesmus Mutio is the National Organizing Secretary of the University's Academic Staff Union. And we're also now joined by Moses Kimani, who's an education expert, as we continue looking at the 2022 KCSE results. Moses, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Welcome to the hot seat of The Situation Room.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So we're talking about the results. And of course, you've seen what's been happening over social media, in the news over the weekend. And people have been asking the question, all right, so does this make sense? There are some schools that have had stellar improvement. A school that had maybe a mean score of 5 jumping to 8, 9. Another one with 4.5 jumping to 8.4. Other schools that are actually have been performing well. National School, for instance, just that it has increased its mean score. And this time there is no student who has C- and below. In fact, no student has below a B, right? Everybody is B into A-, into A plane and B+. What do you make of that?
Well, thank you. Again, with regards to that, I think when you see a school jumping quite a number of stairs to be at the top, I would think there's something more than what meets the eye. It's not just that this time they did They put in a lot of work. Sometimes it's possible that there is an anomaly, and I would think that in a normal population, you would expect to have a normal curve of events, so that if you're talking about education data, then it should be normal, such that you should have students scoring on this side of the curve and others on this side of the curve. So when you have a school where maybe the lowest grade is a B, and that was not the case for the last 3, 4, 5 years, then it begs the question, what magic? Yes. So I have feelings that we may not know exactly how these exams were conducted and whether there was integrity, but rumors and talks in and around the town are saying there must be something that happened.
But nobody's coming up with something concrete.
True.
There's a story today in the Star which is saying, there's some school where a head of department was recalled back to the school during exam time, and they were given an apron and they were told, you go and act as a watchman. So the watchman was sent home. So this teacher is now interacting with students at the gate when they're coming into. How does that lead to cheating? I mean, if you look at all this, have you heard anything that is concrete that says this is how cheating happened?
Good. It's very hard to get hard evidence with regards to cheating. We've been talking about cheating for quite a long time, and it's really, really hard to get that evidence because people have all manner of ways that people have devised many ways of getting through with cheating. So it's really hard to get the evidence because the kind of evidence we talk about is when someone has a written script, has a phone, and nowadays I think there are other many ways of getting through the exam without the phone, without the written scripts. So cheating takes very many shapes.
There'll be testimonial, Moses. I mean, if you're talking about over 1,000+ students who come from similar schools, some of them are day schools, sub-county and county schools, there'll be people who will say, you have to decide you. There'll be a story.
Even in the absence of the testimonial, I think we are looking in the wrong place for the evidence. You're looking at the process of actually sitting for the exam and conducting it. You're hoping that is where you will find the evidence. That may be difficult, because if indeed there is collusion, people will not speak, because you will know you'll tip the apple cart. You will raise a hue and cry that you don't need. The evidence arises in what we've seen in the past when we had a Minister for Education called Matiang'i, when the year before it had been announced that there were 975 students whose examinations were actually cancelled for cheating. The year that followed, 5,000. And how this was realized was during the examinations. Because you can't lie. You can't have a situation where you have 50 students answering in the same way, in the same manner, and getting the same things wrong. That is almost irrefutable evidence. It doesn't matter what you say or do, even if you use the laws of probability or improbability if they exist. None of those will add up. So I am saying that it isn't something that can't be proved. It can. Number two, this is as old as time. I mean, the issue about examination cheating goes back to God knows when. I remember there's an article written by Philip Ochieng around 2016 when he was saying in 1954, now 54, is a really long time ago in the previous century, okay? There was talk about cheating when he himself was sitting for the equivalent of the Standard 8 exam, okay? But more importantly, in this same region that we're talking about, there was a cabinet minister who raised this same issue. And he said, look, folks, stop this business of cheating. You are going to cause our students harm. A cabinet minister who came from that same region. And he said it. So we have a history of this. It isn't something that is new. As for the evidence, it is not that difficult to gather.
It's true. I have had, and I'll probably mention a friend who mentioned to me, because he was involved in the process of marking the papers, and he could say there's evidence of collusion, but the process of also raising it up, he said, there's a lot of hue and cry that comes up with when you raise it. So sometimes you just put that blind eye and just let it go, which I think evidence could be there, but how to gather it and how to use it is where we have a problem. Because there's a lot of talk around people who are actually willing to give the information and say, yeah, we got this thing, even students. But when you think about the results of you coming out, then it becomes something you don't want to do. Yeah.
You know, one of the things that was said, this is anecdotally speaking, about schools that were private. I'm not talking about now, I'm talking about close to 20 years ago. What they would do is you look for a student in a public school, students who are doing well, you talk to the parents, and you enroll them in your school. Yep. But the idea was that they will do well because they're actually good students. Yeah. It will raise the profile of your school. Yeah. Now, this, it was said, happened very, very often. Now, again, it was also spoken of over a period of time that teachers would simply ensure that there's tough rote learning. They make sure children memorize without necessarily understanding, and they would do well. And then there were also reports that once they go to secondary school, they just sort of like disappeared. Now, those who managed to get through to university, again, just disappeared. So the process of learning, it could be argued, didn't really take place. Because when you learn something, you'll understand it, and irrespective of the passage of time, you will still know what it is you learned. If you memorize it for the purpose of exam, the likelihood of it being retained is very low. So what I'm saying is, when we talk about examination cheating, the word cheating in our context, it's actually a mixed basket. Many things happening over a long period of time. And the worst thing is that it being accepted. It being seen as something that, well, shouldn't be talked about too loudly or questioned or shouldn't be raised because, after all. And you see, the person whose name keeps coming up is the student. And yet you ask yourself, what muscle does the student have to actually, everything we've discussed, to make it possible for them to cheat? Is it not something that an adult, someone older would do, whether it is the parents or the teachers or whoever it is? So we focus on the students, and yet, if they were culprits indeed, it cannot be the students. The students are the end product of it. But who are the people who make it possible?
Why would, it might sound like such a basic question, but why would one cheat in an exam? Why?
Of course, as my friend has said, your students have been facilitated to pass or to cheat. And everyone sees for an exam to pass. No one goes for an exam to fail.
One would hope. Yes.
And, there's always uncertainty when you're in an exam. Even if you're subject to a very simple exam, there's always that fear of a failure, to fail, the fear to fail. So if there's an easy way that you're assured of passing, then that is the way that we're going to pursue. So if someone has facilitated you to pass, then you are easily going to take that route. But again, as he says that the real focus is on the student, then what we are doing actually is that we are destroying the future of these students. Because as I said, one, we're going to have a mismatch in courses in the universities where you have students in a course that they don't deserve to be there, and where they deserve to be, they're not there. And even the future, we are telling these students that the best way in life is to take shortcuts, is just to cheat. And I think we need to do better than that. Tell these students that it pays to be honest, it pays to be trusted, and it pays to do the right things.
But if we are looking at a situation of cheating, is it the students who are single-handedly involved in this process? We're looking at a supposedly airtight system, aren't we? That the exam papers, for example, are under, it's like Fort Knox, under heavy guard.
Yes.
Right? Those, we are talking about police who guard. We are talking about security agencies involved in the process of guarding those exam papers. So it is very unlikely that a student, for example, has access to papers before an exam without the aid of somebody else in that process. So are we talking about, because look, it's if we're talking about a cheating situation that has happened, I mean, it's all over the place right now. We cannot run away from then the possibility, or it's hitting us in the face, that it is not the students who are involved in it alone. For me, that's an even bigger problem.
Let me say, I am finding it hard to accept that there was cheating in the 2022 KCSE. And I'm looking back into, yes, there was a period when there was cheating, and CT, you've talked about it. In those instances where there was cheating, even the examiners, when they're marking the exams, they'd find out and they would flag it. And NEC, the National Examinations Council, would also realize that there's something here to be looked at, and they would cancel the results and say, well, first of all, we need to investigate what happened here. So we are cancelling everybody's results in this particular school, going on and forth. The people who came in to stop it, the NEC chairperson and the cabinet secretary for education. Matiang'i was a minister. Professor George Magoha was a chairperson of NEC. Okay? And he said they stopped it. And we saw a change. And in the preceding years, we did not see complaints or hear complaints of cheating. The people who are in charge of managing the preparation for the 2022 KCSE are the same people. Okay? Professor Magoha was a CS for education. The systems that he had put in place at the National Examinations Council, surely they can't have collapsed. Matiang'i was a CS for interior until September. Well, until the new ministers, around September. So the preparation for the 2022 KCSE was still being managed by the same people. You cannot tell me that after they left office like this, it collapsed in such a calamitous way that a student somewhere in a small school in a village in Kisii suddenly now got access to leaked paper and knew how to answer it such that they've now passed the exam.
Let me come in on that. Thank you. So a good question she asked is why cheat? So, and I would like to say this, that we have put a lot of premium on examination other than on learning, so that everybody think if I just manage to go to the next side, that is by getting an A, then I'll be doing better. And this part of the reason is, think of it, the parents whose children scored a C+ and above are going to have it easier than all the other parents. So you can imagine, it's not just the student who is thinking about moving to the next side, but even the parent is thinking about, how do I move my child to the next side? And there are so many other people who are willing to assist in the process. So what I think...
I like that. Willing to assist in the process. Yeah.
True, and that could be people from various places, could be, and I'm not pointing fingers to anyone. I'm thinking could be people from people who can actually access the exam. Could be security agencies, could be people at the NEC, it could be anyone. And there's a lot of talk around who could have leaked these exams. Like City has said, the student has no muscle to reach the exam. Someone who is an adult, someone with the muscle must be able to. But you ask the question, why then would they want to do that?
Do you know how just tightly secured these exams are?
Yeah.
Okay? Those papers are sealed in such a way that you tamper, it will be clear it has been tampered with. And the opening of the exams, usually in the presence of not one person, very many people, including the head teacher. But there is a container in every constituency where these things are kept, and no one other than the DCC, the Deputy County Commissioner, has the key to it. It's not passed on to them, and they physically go every morning, physically, during the examination period, they go and they open it. And they're not alone. They're all these witnesses. So now, when you look at all those processes, when we say there's something wrong, then it means you're going to start it from that level.
Absolutely.
Going downwards. Yes.
Now the question is, who has the appetite to actually be bold enough to say that there was something wrong here and we need to check it? Just like you were saying, Eric, that before, when these things showed up, somebody was bold enough to say, hold on a minute. There's something that's not right here. And from all let's just even look at the natural projection that improvement would take. Would we see in 365 days an improvement of such a nature from 5 to 10? Would we? would we be able to see that the lowest score, and I'm just asking us to be very practical here, would we be able to see that the lowest score was a B- in a school whereby that performance had not shown its head historically?
Actually, you can.
And that's what I'm saying. If that is the case, then all this hullabaloo would not be coming out, as it were.
But let me give you an example of how it could happen. You see, let's start with the intake of the students after Standard 8.
Yes.
Okay? What is the caliber of that student?
Okay.
There will be years in which the caliber you'll find is higher and they're motivated. And that's where you see the differences in the years. The end product that we are speaking of, you will have seen those signs in Form 2, in Form 3, and Form 4, and you can predict and say, this lot is going to do well. Because you can see it. Now, if that is absent, and you have these delightful exam results at the end,
Then we have a problem.
Yeah, no, we have a massive problem.
And that's the thing. Right now, everybody is only looking at this. You do not have the history of this particular class, this cohort in the previous years. Unless you can tell me that this particular school, village school somewhere in KCSE, we can send some names. Let's say a name, Kebabe Girls, Ikonge PAG, where they have now sent about 50 students who have qualified to university, where previously only 3, 4, 5 were qualifying for university. Now, can we look at this particular cohort and their performance previously? We don't have that. We're only looking at the 50 now and are raising questions.
And more so,
should we be looking deeper?
It even sounds discriminatory. Because essentially you're saying that a village school of that nature
should not be
cannot defeat these giants.
It has never taken people to university.
Why is it taking university now?
No, what we should be what we should be questioning is not whether they have been able to take over the giants. It's whether, and Latif is asking a very important question, are we able to go back to look at their performance at probably Form 1, Form 2, and maybe see the journey as to how they got to move from a mean of 5 to a mean of 10. I would think, and this is from a teacher's perspective, that wouldn't happen in a year. So if then there was such a growth of data, then it should have happened incrementally. That is probably at Form 1, Form 2, Form 3.
But Mwalimu, is it not possible? So if you were taken to, you were posted as the principal to this particular school, let's use Ikonga PAG, all right? You go in there and you come in with your Form 1s.
Yeah.
And I'm going to work. This is like my pilot class. The others, they've been performing this way, they've been performing the other way, and it's going to be different. But your pilot class, you've given it a lot more attention. You've even looked at how am I advancing these students from Form 1 to Form 2 to Form 3 to Form 4? How am I arranging them in streams? Everything working towards that. You have your purpose is to let them pass. Is it not possible?
I'll speak from
because the previous year, the previous class, you found them there. They're not your lot. You've decided. So these ones we're gonna continue, but this will be I'm phasing out bad performance and introducing excellent performance.
I can speak from experience that cannot happen in a year. It's not entirely impossible, but it's really hard because part of the learning is influenced by the environment the student finds. So you may come in as a new principal, you have these new cohorts, but they're coming in to interact with 3 more cohorts, Form 2, Form 3, Form 4. And part of learning is influenced by the environment. So I really doubt you can have more like a special class for 4 years that is protected from the influence of all the others, so that you're able to move from.
And there's a jump in performance.
I don't think so.
Do you think it's possible? Onesmus.
Well, I will agree. Maybe it might be possible, but again, if we brought in a new principal, is not the person who is going to teach these students. So did we also bring in all new teachers? That would be the question, because him alone as the principal is not the one who is teaching the students. So perhaps we trying to scout for the best principal in the country and brought him in that school, and also brought in the best teachers in the country and also brought them to these students.
Yes.
So we also, as my friend says, we also now trying to change the environment. Perhaps we isolated them from these other students.
Yes.
We also give them better facilities. And then we try to see perhaps then that happened. But if that did not happen, then
I'll give you an example. I'll give you a practical case study. All right? 1990. This is primary school. Okay? Around 1988, a school in Oloitoktok, Kajiado South, called Kimana Primary School, gets a new headmaster called Mr. Kamwaro. Mr. Kamwaro comes into the school and he's this disciplinarian. He wants to change things and all this and the other. And he decided students have got to start passing better from this school. Previously, yes, students would pass, go to district schools, go to provincial schools. Many of them will end up just going to day school, and many of them would drop out, even in Standard 8. By the time we're getting to the year, which year am I talking about? 1990.
Yes.
Kamoro had introduced something called Mutio, where moving from Standard 6 to 2007 is difficult. So he had a crop of pupils in Standard 8. And the performance of those pupils in Standard 8 in 1990, all of them passed to go to district schools and above. Of course, the mean then jumped from 1989 to 1990, jumped by over 100%. So it's possible.
It is possible.
On the
is
basis
possible.
that you're going to throw out some students, which in itself is wrong. And you must also think about the entry level of these students. Like, what were their entry marks when they were coming in? It's possible to have a school where the entry marks were really high, probably 350, but because of probably the environment and lack of structures, discipline structures, maybe they haven't been performing well. So that when you bring in a new principal, then he's able to work up the structures and then have the students perform. So unless we have now the entry level, and you've just mentioned a school that's deep in the very remote place. So I really doubt whether they were a sleeping giant, in the sense that they had very good entry mark, only that they lacked certain structure.
They lacked
you don't even
attention.
need to have a good entry mark.
That's what they lacked. They lacked
No.
attention.
Yes, the headmaster is very important. Don't underestimate the influence of the headmaster. But you need time. You need a cycle.
Exactly.
They may come
time.
in. Yes, they may come in with not so very good results. But give it 4 years, they could actually. But it has to be a cycle. So that's what you want to understand. Okay, when did this cycle begin?
Exactly.
See, what's being reported, it sounds like it happened magically. Maybe it didn't happen magically. Maybe it's been progressive.
Which one? This one for this one that we saw on Friday.
Yes.
Remember, 2022, if you look back 4 years, which year are we talking about?
2018.
2018. From 2016, 2018, what was happening in the education sector at that
What
point?
I think needs to happen is that if there's doubt in this thing, and that is what we're not hearing right now, what has happened in progression, and take for everything that is causing any kind of doubt, look through what happened for those elements that you're speaking of, for us to then make a determined decision. That's what needs to happen.
That's what we need to know.
That's what we need to know.
We want to continue this conversation in the next hour and open the phone line so we can hear from you. I mean, you come from areas where these schools are, all right? Tell us about a school that you know of. Tell us about this performance. Tell us about the previous year's performance. Tell us if you know anything that happened in a particular school that's now done very, very well in the 2022 KCSE. Let us know. Or if you've heard anything from your own child who tells you,
Hapa dad.
walinipatia D lakini nani alipewa pepa mapema.